We have an awesome number of people here. Sound good? Yeah, let's do it. So I'm Danielle. I'm a Mozilla Science Fellow for 2016, and I'm based at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, Oregon. And I'm so excited to see some new faces here. So I did the study group orientation in the fall, and but I couldn't actually start a study group because I was trying to defend my dissertation. So then I defended, and now my study group is ready to go with the first meeting at the end of this month. So Zana is not here today, so I'm going to fill in for her with help from Aurelia moderating this session, and let's get into it. So let's talk about the orientation. I'm going to start while people are adding themselves to roll call. I'm going to start on line 46 of the Etherpad.
Can I interrupt real quickly, Danielle?
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin your flow.
Oh, no, go for it.
I just want to ask everybody, if you look at the Etherpad, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a bunch of colors. And there should be a color that's right at the very top with a big blank space next to it. If you could please put your name in there, just so everybody can see what colors are assigned to whom, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
We were talking about this earlier, and it seemed like some people saw names and other people just see colors and unnamed. So, oh, here come some names. I'm going to reload my pad quickly and see what happens. All right. So while people are getting in there on the Etherpad, let's start quickly on line 47 now, because people keep adding. And just talk a little bit about this. So this video is what we're using for the call, and it seems to be working pretty well for everyone. I haven't had any complaints. And so we're going to have this session, which is scheduled to go about 2 hours. I think that is what happened yesterday. And then we'll have another session on January 26th and another session on February 3rd. Note the different time. So, and for each of these, if somebody just joined, if you can just mute yourself on a big call, it's easier if people who aren't talking are muted, because otherwise there's feedback and the sound is weird. There's also links to the Etherpad for this particular session. And one note about Etherpads: in the Mozilla world, there's a lot of Etherpads. And one of the first things I learned is that you can just bookmark them in a folder called Etherpads, and then you'll be able to find them forever. And I was so glad that I did that. So that is my simple, my useful life hack right there. Make yourself a bookmark folder full of Etherpads, because that's where you can find them all. We also have a study group guide linked here on line 54, and then a link to the Gitter chat. And I think a lot of you guys have already participated in the Gitter chat, and it's a really great place to just pop in and ask questions, or if you just did a session and you want to just let us know how it went, or you just did a session and you're like, oh, these are things that I could do better next time. It's a good place to pop in and chat anytime with the group. So it's 9:04 now, so we're going to do 2 minutes of silent ether padding, and I see people have already jumping in on starting on line 60 and filling out their names and challenges and hopes for the group. So let's take 1 more minute and get everyone in there, and then we'll talk about it. So at 9:06, we will start talking. And also, if we have current study group leads who have active groups, and I think we have some people here from U of T coders on the call, can you go down to line 76 and put in some notes about the structure of your group? That would be great. Okay, 9:06. So I'm going to get going on the intros, and I'll start with mine, and then maybe a couple of other people could jump in and talk about their hopes. So on my campus, there are a bunch of disparate groups that put on events kind of randomly. So one thing I'm hoping to do with the group is form like a central place, because what happens on my campus is like the bioinformatics department will do a workshop on R, but only people in the bioinformatics department will hear about it. So I think there's a real need for a unifying central force for people who are interested in working with programming and working with open tools. So that's one goal. Another goal, ooh, can, if you're not muted, can you mute yourself? Because I hear the feedback. Another goal is to just provide a really friendly and supportive space for people who want to learn to code, which was definitely me 2 years ago, who had never written a line of code. And I worked with some local groups in my town, Pie Ladies and our R meetup, and I got some really great, super friendly support. So I want to provide that same thing. And yeah, and I guess ideally, my long-term hope would be that we can just get something sustainable. And our challenge, of course, is time, because researchers never feel like they have time to do extra things. So maybe we can pull out a few people. Maybe I'll read them for the sake of time. So Nick wants to start a group to create an open environment where people can come together and learn to code and discuss problems with their research. Absolutely. Community of people from all research areas. Yeah, I think that's really important to explore open science and related topics and raise awareness in their lab and departments. That's awesome. Steve, primary challenge, getting a group off the ground, period. Yes, that is challenging, and we should not underestimate that. It can be hard to get something organized, especially in like the transient grad school environment where people have shifting schedules and stuff and changing commitments. Francesca, you're in Aberdeen. You had a first meeting. That's awesome. From your department, and everyone was enthusiastic. So now the challenge is to reach out to other departments and make it inclusive and open. Looks like we have a bunch of people, Erin, Elizabeth, and Teresa, with no study group yet. But that's okay. That's why we're all here, and we will talk about some strategies to get it off the ground. So this sounds good. Now, I was wondering if we could, what do you guys think? Should we jump down to talk about with the existing study group leads to talk about how they're doing? Does that sound good for everyone? I'm going to look at your faces. Yes, I get some nods. Okay, so I've already talked a little bit. Sarah, do you mind chiming in here? Talk about what your study group structure is, and maybe since we have so many people who are just starting and haven't even gotten it off the ground yet, if you could talk about the beginning part a little bit, that would be useful.
Sure, yeah. I didn't go through the normal Mozilla starting my study group, so it was kind of a mess when I tried to put it together. I'm so excited about all the resources that Mozilla Science has put together for starting your own study group. But yeah, so for our groups are really informal. We have a Python and an R study group that meet on alternating weeks. We get together at the beginning of the semester, come up with a list of topics, and as the semester progresses, we go through each topic. There's usually I usually come up with someone to lead the group each semester so that it has a little more involvement among the community members. So I like help out and to help them with their facilitation a little bit, but mostly we change who's actually leading the groups each semester. Did I answer all the questions, Danielle, or that you put out there?
Yeah, I think that's really good information. How did you develop the system? And I just put the link to your study group under your name there, so people should check that out.
I think that's Madeline's.
Oh, it's Madeline's. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops.
I can put mine in.
Oh yeah, and she already had her link. Yeah, if you can put the link to your study group.
Sure.
How did you come up with the idea of having a different person be the lead each semester?
So that was actually a mix of, I had done it for the first few semesters all by myself, and running all the groups was starting to run me a little ragged. And so I was like, I want to share the responsibilities here, and it's nice because then the people who take over feel a little bit more invested in the group as well. And so they have some like input about coming back even when they're not the leader anymore. And so it's nice to share the responsibility for both those reasons.
I guess I have one more question following up on that. Do you Do you have an organizing committee that meets then, or does the lead just take the lead on everything for that semester and then hand it off?
Yeah, so for our group, we have me and my co-chair run all the groups within our group. The Python and the art study group start out, and then I usually target someone that I think will be interested in leading the group and specifically ask them, which works out a lot better than just sending out an email being like, "Oh, someone please want to lead the group this semester," because people don't generally respond to that, I've found. But knowing kind of after going to the group, I usually have an idea each semester about who might be interested in trying out the next semester. In fact, the guy who's doing Python study group this semester, he's a little nervous about doing it, and I was like, no, you don't have to know Python super well, I promise. Like, just talking to people is going to be okay. So, yeah.
And I just put a section down on line 92 for anyone on the call who has specific questions for this people who are leading active study groups. Go ahead and you can put them right below, I guess it's line 93 now. So, okay, that's really useful. Madeline, could you chime in and talk a little bit about your study group? And sorry for the mix up on the sites there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm Madeline. I'm from UT Coders, and our group is kind of similar to Sarah's, I think. We are a mixture of Python and R mostly. The big difference between ours would be that we kind of mixed all of them together, so we don't have like a separate organizing structure for just R and just Python. We kind of alternate events that are R-based or Python-based, but everyone can come to any event, and often people will come to both the R and Python events. We meet every week at the same time in the same place. I think for most people that are kind of used to having classes, it's like a good structure to help remember when to come. Kind of like Sarah, we have a social event occasionally, and we've also gotten involved with organizing software carpentry workshops. We do some of those throughout the year. A bunch of the members of the group are also instructors. Our workshops are the actual coding workshops are an hour, and we rotate through instructors. And kind of similar to what Sarah was saying, we usually just kind of volunteer people for this. So like, we'll put out a list of all the workshops that we're going to hold in the term, and then people can either volunteer for instructing them, or if nobody volunteers, then we'll kind of choose someone and say, hey, can you do this? And sometimes people will teach who never actually come to the group or don't come to the group after that. So it's really, if anyone just kind of finds us on GitHub and then wants to teach once, that's totally fine. Then the other thing that I think has really, really helped our group is that we have an exec team. So about a year after I kind of got things rolling, I noticed there were a few people that were really involved in the group and they were really contributing a lot to the group. So I kind of gave them executive positions. So now all the stuff that I used to do is now kind of divided among everybody. And we've also added some things that I had no idea about. So for example, we have a treasurer who has a lot of experience being the treasurer and is really good at that. That link there that I pasted is the description of the roles that we have right now.
Whoops, I muted, sorry. That's awesome. I love volunteering. That is, I think, Sarah, you said something like that too. I used to organize a weekly seminar series at my institution, and I had to get 2 people to talk every week for the entire school year. And the only way to do it was to just go to their lab and be like, what's the date you're going to do it? Thank you so much. There was no, if I sent an email, I would just get nothing. So I'm all about volunteering. That's pretty, you gotta twist some arms sometimes, and then people show up and do a great job because they want to do it. They just don't think they have time. So that is excellent. Julian, do you want to say a little bit, and then we'll get into these questions? So anyone on the call, line 102 now is where the questions are. So Julian, you can do your thing, and then we'll go back and ask some questions.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Julian.
Okay.
There you are.
Hi, I'm Julian, Arizona. So I ran into some Australians at a recent conference and I was already involved with software carpentry, and they told me about this thing that they're doing in Australia called ResBaz, or Research Bazaar, which is more of an ongoing process, not weekly events as well as workshops, with a yearly event to try and keep up the momentum between software carpentry workshops, because what we found was that people come to the workshops, they learn things, and then we sort of set them free, and they get lost. So it's that providing that ongoing support and help desk. That's more than a help desk, because often people don't know even what the questions are. So it's that sort of talking to other people who have had the same problems, who understand the challenges. So it's a weekly event. We have 3 weekly events. One on Thursday afternoons, that'll be today, and that's called Hacky Hour. We meet at a local pub from 4 to 6, something like that, and we chat, and different people from different faculties show up, always somebody interesting talking about something interesting, and just building that connections between different faculties. And then we have a similar thing on Tuesday mornings for people who are not into the bar scene, and then Shut Up and Write on Fridays for people who need some quiet time. So yeah, so it's just building on that. It's building steam, and then we're planning the festival at the end of March, beginning of April. So Jennifer Nichols, who's also on the call from the library here, along with a few other people, will be building on that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that update. I love Shut Up and Write. I love that so much. So yeah, we're doing a hacky hour. We have a bar on our campus, which is a new thing, and I keep saying this on every call. I'm like, there's a bar, but it's very exciting. And so we're planning a hacky hour, but a Shut Up and Write is a great idea. That's fantastic. Okay, so we're getting a bunch of questions starting on line 105 in Etherpad, and I'm going to ask them, and then if the study group leads can chime in and just answer them. And I guess, some people are already answering them, so maybe I'll just read through. We'll do that, and then interrupt me if you want to. That's fine. So the first question is, what types of events and activities did you do to generate interest in your study group and keep it going? Madeline put a link to her first event, which was a hacky hour, to gauge interest and get ideas, super informal. I think that's awesome. See who shows up, see what they want to do, and then go with that. Software carpentry workshops are great starter events. I want to totally +1 what Julian said about doing an event and then letting everyone go into the ether, and hopefully you all use GitHub now. I think that one important role of these study groups is to provide that ongoing support. So when a workshop comes to town, everyone can actually have somewhere to come to ask their follow-up questions when they try to incorporate a new tool into their workflow. So, and Sarah said we have a social hour. So, okay, that's good to get all these people together. The next question is, any tips for reaching out across disciplines outside your department? Super good question. That is really important and always a challenge at academic institutions. Totally agree. I'm going to +1. And for anyone not familiar with Etherpadding, we're always +1ing and +100ing and +1000ing when we just want to say, I like that. I agree with that kind of thing. So get on all the mailing lists. Totally true. We have a professional development center, so we're on their mailing list, the postdoc office, and then the different departments. And then what I do is I try to identify a key person in each department and then get them to deal with their department. So I don't really know anything about the bioinformatics. I mean, I know people in bioinformatics, but they've got master's degree students and PhD students, and I'm not sure who the people are. So I just call my friend Stephen Bedrick, and I'm like, so can you get this out to your people? And he does. So yes, somebody +1 that. I can't tell who it is. Find local groups on campus that mandate a cross-disciplinary interfaculty collaboration. Yes, that is a really great idea. Sometimes at my institution, there are other groups who do one-off events. And so I try to work with them because they're interested, but they only have time or resources to do, one workshop a year. So we'll try to get those people. And then the green person, who's the green person? Steve. Steve asked 2 questions. He said, how many people came to your first event? And so maybe some people could chime in and answer that. And also asking, saying that you found a number of groups on campus or sort of dabbling. Yeah, right. And so contacting those folks and trying to get them all together, I think is really important. Can we talk about first event, Madeline? had about 25 people. I think even if you only get like 5 people at your first event, that's cool. My experience with running other events is that the community will grow if everyone shows up and has a good time. Don't be discouraged if you only get 5 people or something at your first event. Just come and talk about us about it in the Gitter chat, and we'll make you feel better and continue. So, unless anyone else has some other questions, is there anyone? We can move on to the facilitation basics. Does that work for everyone? Yes? Okay, good. So let's talk about the facilitation basics. And so I'm going to just run through a couple of these things in the Etherpad, and maybe some of the other study group leads can chime in with things that have worked for them. And then we'll do 2 minutes of silent Etherpadding to talk about what a good learning experience that you've had. So is somebody going to say something? No? Okay. I'm going to keep going. Arriving early is key. I don't know how your campus is, but sometimes you book a room and then you get there and it's locked on my campus. So it's always good to arrive early and make sure that all your AV and everything is set up. Greeting newcomers and making introductions is a really important part of making people feel comfortable. And I think it helps in every situation, especially when people are going out of their comfort zone to learn something new, to have somebody just say, hey, I'm Danielle, welcome, we're going to do this, thanks for coming. Be relaxed and friendly. Madeline has a great hacky hour, hat. Like, is that going to be a longer word? That's cool. I would like to see that hat. Do you have it with you? Can you put it on? No. That's really awesome. Yeah, I think the hacky hour, we've had a lot of interest in the hacky hour, so I'm hoping it'll be successful for our group. I think also for researchers, like, I just have a lot of work to do, so I would love I like co-working at coffee shops and stuff, so I think that informality and friendly atmosphere of just working at a big table at a bar or coffee shop is going to be great. I think I can find a pic. Great. So another thing is to encourage questions, and you can do that by just saying that you encourage questions, but you can also just like think of the most simple baseline level questions that you might have had, even if you don't really have them, and then say, here's a question I had when I was first learning. And I taught an intro to R. I called it R Stats for Noobs. I taught an R Stats for Noobs workshop, and I was getting a lot of silence and blank stares, and then I started saying, here are the stupid things that I thought when I first started, or not stupid, but it seemed to help people like loosen up and be like, actually, can you come look at this? Because that they hadn't downloaded our studio and had no idea what was going on, and they were just sitting there like. So encourage questions, and sometimes a good way to do that is by owning up to your own failures, etc. Go really slow, always helps. Don't rush things. I like to have, if I'm doing a workshop, I like to have me or someone else running the workshop, and then a helper to go around and deal with people who are, say, didn't actually download our studio or whatever it is. So I always plan to have a helper because I think it makes it a lot smoother, and it forces you to go slow, because then the helper's like, nope, we're not ready. Yeah, and so I was wondering if any study group leads want to chime in with some successes and failures, and then we can also start our silent ether padding. Any study group leads? Madeline, Sarah, sorry to.
Say that I found that.
I hear somebody. Who is it?
It's me, Madeline. Can you see
Oh,
me?
hi.
I found my hat.
Oh, you found your hat. Oh, there you
are. It's just a paper hat, so you can make one yourself. I modeled this after Bill's actual hat that said hacky hour on it, but I didn't have an actual hat.
That's amazing. Is it shiny? Is it glittery?
No, it's just I think that's just pencil actually. But so I mean, this is like a real problem, which is what if you're meeting in a public place and nobody knows anybody, how are they going to know like which group of people sitting around is the right group of people to go to? And I think like not knowing that is what stops a lot of people from going to stuff that's like in a public place.
Yeah, right. So you want to make it, they're like, who is the person? Oh, that's the person. That's wonderful.
Wearing red, that would be less kind of embarrassing, but
No, I like the hat because it sets the tone of like, this is not, I'm not here to like tell you how much I know and make you feel stupid. Like I'm here to wear this silly hat and have a good time. That's great. Any other successes or failures that you've had with your study groups? No, that's okay. We can move on and do 2 minutes.
I had a quick note about introductions.
Ooh, yeah.
I like what Sarah's saying there, and I just want to like say that plus a million because I think it's really easy for a group to become kind of cliquey if like the same people are coming all the time and they know each other. So even if I see that half people in the group have already come, we always every single session everybody goes around and introduces themselves. That way it's always like somebody can come for the first time and not feel like everyone else knows each other, even if they do.
I have
That's
a comment.
awesome. Yes.
So I went to a hack night with one of the organizations in San Francisco, and they did this really cool thing where they had like all of their like consistent members wear a badge which was red, and then they had the noobs wear one with or blue, and it allowed for all of the people in red to go up and toss to the people in blue to make sure they feel actively engaged and part of the community. So that's like one thing that you could consider
That's
doing.
awesome. That's a great idea. I love that. I think that's an excellent comment. Don't be cliquey is totally important. And I think especially at the end of a long day, it's easier to just talk to people you know and be like, hey, back to talking to people I know. But if you make that little extra effort, it will go a long way to get new people to show up and come back and become active members. I love that idea. All right, it's 9:28, so I think we're doing pretty well on time, maybe even a little ahead of schedule. But let's take 2 minutes of silent ether padding and think about a great learning experience that you've had and what made it work well for you. We're getting a lot of action in the pad starting on line 140, so I'm going to just let this minute that we're in run out, and then we can talk about these responses. I'm gonna let everyone finish up their sentences. And while you guys are doing that, I'll just say what my experience was, and then maybe some other people can chime in and talk about theirs. So when I was first starting to learn how to code, I went to my local PyLadies meetups and did command line and did some Python basics. And I found them to be, I was very intimidated to go because it was like in an office downtown after hours and I didn't know any of the people and I had never been to a meetup before. Um, but it was great. They moved slowly. They used acronyms infrequently or never, so they always defined the terms, which I think is really important. And they kept the atmosphere light. And they also welcomed people from all levels of experience and from like many different fields. So there were people who had never done anything before, and then there were people who were a little more experienced but wanted a refresher. So I thought that was really, so that's what I try to emulate when I do my workshops, is to be that welcoming. They also had like free food and a tray full of hot sauces that you could put on the food. So I was like, wow, look at all these hot sauces. This is great. Um, so maybe some other people can chime in. James, perhaps.
Oh, hello.
Hello, James.
Hi. I guess my best experience was the first software carpentry that I attended. We had a bunch of people, grad students. We had some government researchers. This is in Victoria in Canada. And we had some faculty, and none of us really knew what was going on, what to expect. And we're in this room where there's a bunch of like fish tanks around us because it's a biology teaching lab. It was quite surreal. We're all a bit apprehensive what's going to happen. And Greg Wilson and Ethan White just sort of calmed everyone down and just started running the thing where we're all on the same page. So you've got faculty, professors on the same page as government researchers and undergrads, and it's just a good learning environment.
That's really cool. I think it's really magical when you can get people from all different levels in their professional field together and all learn something. It builds a nice bond. Thank you, James. What about Elizabeth? I want to get some people talking who haven't talked yet on the call.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. I guess for me, I'm just thinking, so I've been to like a few hack events, and most of those, I felt like the best workshops within them were where everyone kind of came in and they were like, I don't necessarily know this piece or I don't know this piece, and so people could have different angles on it, which was good because usually there were only a few people in the room who really knew something. So when everyone's different angles came in, it helped to be like, oh, well, that's a different way to think about it. That's helpful.
Awesome. Tian? Tian?
Oh yeah. So some of the best places I've gone have been to some of the recent events in San Francisco, where they just like really try to uh, engage the people there, because sometimes tech people can be very antisocial. So uh, they try to facilitate with like different icebreakers, and they have like this one activity where they would just like post a question, and they had everyone just like write on a post-it note, and then they have like a community forum where they just like host like a question and answers from like the community, and then they go over it in time for this like community reflection. So that was really nice.
Awesome. That's a cool way to do. That's a cool way to do it. Who's next? Sarah? Sarah, would you like to verbalize?
Sure. I really enjoyed doing code reviews in my group. Just staying in the, yeah. So they're my favorite meetings. Usually everybody gets to talking. I always give a warning about being nice to one another at the beginning, that we're all, learning, and be kind. And yeah, I even like for when there's stuff, usually even when it's code that's really more basic and stuff that I already am pretty familiar with, I learn a lot because I learn more about like where people get stuck and like where they're at in their learning levels, a lot better. And it's really nice to get everybody talking, and I found it works better when you get people who are not me to code. For some reason, people think that I know what I'm doing. I don't really know why, and they don't give me as much feedback as others. But the other ones have been really great. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Julian?
Sorry, you caught me unawares.
Yeah.
I was typing. Um, we found that by just being enthusiastic and by surrounding ourselves, finding other people who have an enthusiasm, who for whatever subject they love, it's it means that we get a lot of repeat visitors. I'm also involved in starting up the local Python meetup. So there's a lot of we go to different meetups and we find different people, and you start building up a reputation for a good bunch of people who are interesting to hang out with. So it means that people can feel comfortable and safe, because it's not just the stereotypical geeks, scruffy people like me. So it's just having that diversity of viewpoints and backgrounds helps a lot, I think, because we have people from not just biosciences or computer science, but speech and hearing, engineering, natural language processing. It's that creating that variety of people, so that there's always going to be something interesting and somebody who's approachable. So I don't know if there's a secret to it other than just don't be a bad person.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's if it's a fun thing that is enjoyable for you as the organizer, probably everyone else is having a good time too. And so I think it's awesome to try to create a good group of people, and everyone will want to come back. Okay, Abel or Abil? I'm sorry, I'm not sure. How do you pronounce your name?
Abiel.
Abiel. Okay.
Yeah. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Well, what really works for me is to be really open and to listen to the concerns of everybody, because we normally assume that we are working in different fields, and we have several skills, but sometimes we assume everybody knows everything, and that's wrong. So we have to really be open and listen, and if somebody has a question, to be open and empathic, and to be well, make them feel comfortable. I think that's a very important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, I don't know what sort of academic research you guys have been doing, but I'm in neuroscience, and I've definitely been in environments where it was more of an intellectual takedown. And I think
Okay.
it can be a nice break for people in academia. It can be a nice break to know that they're going to have a safe space where they can be like, I don't get this. So yeah. Steve? Steve, I know you're here, but I don't see him. Anyway, I'll read his comment out loud. Maybe he had to run. Steve said he's seconding my comment. Oh, that's nice. About breaking down barriers by sharing horror stories. Totally true. Or sharing, here's what I thought this was when I was first starting. It can talk about how you or how the instructor have had similar troubles in the past. I think it really helps people. One thing I like to say, when I'm leading an event is like, I had never written a line of code 2 years ago. And so like, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. You probably do it better than me. So, and I think that has in the past helped people start asking questions and start participating and stop giving me the like deer in the headlights blank face stare that I hate so much. And Alex, do you want to make the last comment, and then Steph? Where's Alex? I see somebody appearing.
Okay, so Alex says he can't talk because he's at work, but
there
write
he is.
it down
Oh
in
yeah,
the chat.
sorry, I didn't see that. He really likes to make people feel comfortable and safe. You can create an amazing environment, not reach your tipping point. I'm a good listener and try not to get you distracted. Every person's participation is valuable, and I'm really enjoying learning from everyone. That's great. Yeah, I think everyone feeling like their opinion and their questions are valuable is awesome. And it's nice to set aside time in the week for that. So, sparkle fingers. It's another way of showing your agreement on these calls when you're muted, is to sparkle fingers. Steph made a comment about codes of conduct, absolutely, and community norms. So that means when you set community norms, you're verbalizing what the expectations are for the group. So you could go around the table and say, let's set community norms, and you can do it as a post-it note exercise, which we've done, and then just gather them up and talk about them. When we've done this exercise, like at our onboarding, we came up with things like, everyone is here to learn, everyone is here to support each other. This is a safe and welcoming space, and just verbalizing that at the beginning. Ooh, there's a phone ringing somewhere. I don't know what that is. Hello. Verbalizing that at the beginning out loud, I think, can really help. If anyone wants to make a comment about codes of conduct that they've seen that have worked really well, I think that would be cool. I linked to the Mozilla Study Group's Code of Conduct through U of T Coders site. You can scroll to the bottom of the site template and see it right there. So it'll be there on the site, but I would totally +1,000 to the idea of spending even just 10 minutes verbalizing, like, what are we all expecting? What is this community that we're creating? I think it's helpful. And Joey has some comments. Joey, do you want to talk? I can't hear you, so I'm just going to say what you're writing.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Joey.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, just a quick comment. I'm a huge fan of the coding train, I think is what it's called, or they had to change it. They changed the name recently because of, I think, some IP stuff. But it was formerly known as Coding Rainbow. And Dan, who is a professor at the ITP program at NYU, has been on sabbatical this past year, and he made like a zillion videos on how to code and JavaScript and all this stuff. And he's amazing, but just his style of approaching these topics and just his demeanor communicates to me that somebody who's really friendly and open and doesn't take himself too seriously. And I think that is like a really cool way of, at least for me, presenting stuff that would otherwise be really scary. So yeah, if you have a chance, check out those videos because they're amazing and very sticky. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Joey.
Love what
That's
you're doing.
awesome. Love what you're doing. Thank you so much. I think another thing that we've been doing on our science lab calls, which I think is great, is to put out calls for fun links, and this would totally fall under fun links. But that's another like ice-breaking thing you could do at an event. Like, what's the latest fun thing you've seen on the internet, maybe related to coding, and get people talking about fun things on the internet. That always makes people happy. So unless there's more questions about talking about this topic, Danielle, fun links. Yes, I love fun links. I can't help myself. Yeah, so now let's spend a little bit of time talking about the Mozilla Science Lab, and hopefully Aurelia and Steph can chime in and help me with this section. We have a link to a presentation that Aurelia made that kind of breaks it all down. And we want to also clarify a point of confusion. We are not actually a lab, but we are made up of people some of whom have worked in labs. We're not really doing research, but we're promoting the best research workflows, best practice of open tools, and trying to facilitate peer-to-peer learning, and developing supportive communities to promote open science projects and bring some of the community building stuff developed in the open source community into science, which is a little bit behind, in my opinion. So building communities around open ideas and projects. And along that line, I copied over from yesterday's call, where there was a call for people in another time zone. And the application for the open leadership training deadline is due this Friday, so you still have time to get that in. And you have already met the requirements to apply because you want to build a community of people working with open tools and open science. So it's a project, it's a training that will give you some mentorship to keep your projects moving. And I think it's very important to note that it does not need to be a code-based project. So you guys should check into that and apply. And then we also have a link to the Mozilla Science Lab website where you can look at our events. You can come chat with the fellows. Me and Tion, who's on this call, are both fellows this year. You can do that through Gitter. You can find us on Twitter. And also a link to the Mozilla Leadership Network. And yeah, I mean, essentially what makes this community so great is you guys and events like this, where we have people on this call from Amsterdam, Mexico City, Brazil, the States, Canada, and the other call was Africa and Europe. And it's an amazing community, a global community of people who are interested in working together and helping each other learn. And there's really nothing better. That's kind of the best thing in the world. So if Steph and Aurelia have anything to add, now is the time to jump in. And then we'll move on to Aurelia.
Aurelia, you want to go first?
Sure. So the presentation that's on line 160, if everyone just wants to open it, sometimes it's easier than doing a screen share and kind of going through things. There's a lot of slides there, but they basically go over the programs that we run at the Science Lab, some of our staff members and people you might see in the Gitter chat. So the second slide is like an image of our staff, and it's mostly myself, Steph, who you see on the call and who chimed in before multiple times and will chime in after me. And then Xana as well, that you'll probably see the most of. But there are other folks like Caitlin and Abby and Arliss who will probably be contributing to our Gitter channel chat. So if you see their names, say hi. So our programs, I highlighted a few types of things that we do in addition to study groups. So if you look at slide 3, we have the study groups repo and all the study groups resources, but we also have a project section on our website. So if you find that you do have a project that's open science that you'd like to get support from or solicit contributors to, you can try to submit your project and we'll post it and promote it on our site. And then we also have fellowships, and there's a screenshot there of our 2015 fellows, one of whom is on the call, Joey, who chimed in about coding Rainbow. He's one of our former fellows. But I also outlined, after some of the study group resources in slide 4, our current fellows and their contact information, because they regularly contribute to the Gitter chat for study groups. They have different specialties and disciplines, but they're a pretty gregarious, wonderful bunch who love to answer questions. So you should totally reach out to them as resources when you're developing your study group. And I also linked to our website and our GitHub, which, and if you look in the comments or the notes section of the slides, there's links there too to all of these things. So you can also explore the other programs and offerings and events that we have. We have pretty regular calls for the study groups, as well as for, calendar invite just popped up. And we have pretty regular calls that everyone is welcome to join. So independent of these orientation calls, you can also, you're welcome to join our community call and our monthly study group calls. And we also have project calls to focus on projects that need contributions and preparation for our global sprint every year. So our next study group call is on February 3rd, and everyone's invited. It's going to be one of the sessions for the orientation series, actually. And our theme is growing your group and then bringing more members in and building capacity. So it's super relevant to where everyone will be at that stage in the orientation series. And I also put a slide in at the end about the Mozilla Leadership Network and Network Pulse, which is kind of like our project section on our website, but it's a collection of all different types of resources from our broader community across the Mozilla Leadership Network, of which you're a part. But there are different thematic groups that focus on issues of inclusion and privacy and web literacy, open innovation, and decentralization, and those are all linked together and they contribute projects to Network Pulse. So if you ever want to see what's up with the rest of Mozilla, you can check out that site and check our Twitter feed because we usually tweet things across the organization. Steph, do you want to say anything in follow-up too?
Sure. So we've been using the words of community members and network members a little bit, and I just want to let you all know that you are now all community members and network members too, just by participating in this call. So see, low bar to entry here. I also would like to encourage everyone to follow us on Twitter because Aurelia and our fellows are really amazing at posting things on our Twitter account to keep you up to date on the activities that we're doing, plus links to awesome resources that you could probably find useful in the study groups. Let's see, I actually would like to encourage, if you guys have any questions about the Science Lab that we haven't answered, please feel free to add them into the Etherpad at line 173 or below as that keeps moving down. Other than that, I think Aurelia pretty much covered it all.
Ooh, I wanted to chime in with something fun that we're going to do in the why you should follow us on Twitter category. We're going to do a Twitter book club. And I meant to copy the link from the blog. One of our fellows, Kirsty, wrote up a blog post about what is a Twitter book club. So if that's your question, you can read that blog post. But we're all going to read a book, and then there's going to be an hour, I think, on February 20th. Am I right, Aurelia? Is that the day? We're all going to chat about it for an hour. And the book this month, for the month of February, is called Dear Data. And it's really cool. It's people who took, two women who took 52 weeks and sent data visualizations back and forth via the mail. So they're hand-drawn. They're really beautiful. So if you want to get that from your local library or similar, and then join us on Twitter, that's another reason to follow us there. And I'll put the link in the Etherpad.
And thank you to whoever asked the question about if there is a schedule for Science Lab calls. I've put a link to our events page from the Science Lab website. I will also add, in just a second, a link below that where I have a list of all the archive calls with Etherpads so that you can see what's gone on before.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just was stuck finding this link. Where are we? We're here. Okay, so I'm putting this in. And now it's time, I think, to move on to Aurelia's set up your website with GitHub, correct? Are you all ready to go, Aurelia?
Yes, I'm all ready. So I'm sorry, I'm going to attempt screen share, and usually there's some weird kludginess with that. But I'm going to walk through how to set up your repository once you fork. And some of the vocabulary that I'll be using and talking through is listed under line 179. So if you don't know what an issue is, or a README, or a repository on GitHub, you should read it into that as I'm talking. And I'll answer questions afterwards because when I screen share, it doesn't let me see anything else. So so sorry about that if I don't get to your question right away. Okay, so I'm gonna go to video and screen share. I think it's this one. Oh. And I'm gonna put GitHub. Let me know if this populates in any format. There's also a video that I pre-recorded that's linked to in the pad, so in case this totally messes up and doesn't work, I walk through this super fast in about 3 minutes in the video, so you can follow up with that too if you're on mobile or if you can't see what I'm sharing now. So this is GitHub. And if you log in, it's super easy to create an account. This is my test account. And I've only subscribed to one repo, which is why all of these updates are me making commits to the Mozilla Study Group repo. But if you go to your profile in GitHub, You can upload a photo, you can personalize this in many different ways. You can add a location too, which is super helpful because then people know where your study group is based, especially if you get contacts from the global study group community. And I'm going to show you what the study group repo looks like before you fork it. So, and what I mean by forking too is this little button up here. It's possible that some people have already done it, but if you haven't, and you go to our GitHub organization, or the Mozilla Science GitHub, and search for study group, you'll find a repository that looks much like this, or like this original one actually. And when you click this button, it will copy it over to your account, and you'll have your own version of it, which is what you're seeing in this tab. This is my Ori version of study groups. And quickly, we're just going to go over what the structure of the repo is. So you'll see a lot of files here when you fork, and it might be kind of confusing as to what they all do. Not all of them are things you need to edit or change, but there's a data folder, and it includes file and layouts and plugins and posts. And you'll know the difference between a folder and a document based on this little icon. But these are part of the Jekyll framework, which is a kind of blogging software that you can add to GitHub Pages, which is GitHub's site hosting setup. So you can attach a website, like the study group website, to a repository like this where all of the code is exposed and available to everyone. And your site will look something like this when you fork. This is our default site, so we have some default text in here. We have a section about what you do in your study group, and you can change and customize that if you'd like. We also have an events section, and this is how you list events, and I'll go over that process too. And you can encourage people in your community to watch your repository, which is another button that's right near the fork button. And that means you get updates in your activity feed on GitHub. You can also subscribe for email notifications if you want to watch what's happening. And it's good to encourage members to do that because then they get a kind of calendar update every time you add an issue and create an event for your study group. So there's a GIF about how to make that work. And then there's the Who We Are section, and that's usually where you put your little profile and you link to your GitHub or your organizer's GitHubs, and anyone from your study group who wants to join the community can submit a pull request to add themselves. By default, everybody has Bill as a member, kind of like that guy on MySpace who was Tom, who was always your friend when you joined MySpace by default. But Bill is your Tom for this, and this is just a placeholder that you can change, and we'll edit that in this session. And then your code of conduct that Madeline highlighted earlier is right down here. So I'm going to delete this repository because in order for me to walk through the process, I have to fork the repository from the original. So I'm going to go to the scary section in settings where I have to retype carefully what I'm about to do, and I have to be sure that I'm about to do it. Yeah, okay, so that looks good. So now we're going to go to my profile again, and we're going to see that I have no repositories, which is sad. But if I go to Mozilla Science, eventually I'll get to the Mozilla Science organization. And you can see all these fancy repos here, and the study group repo happens to be just at the top, so we'll click on that. The first thing you want to do is fork your repo, and it will do this little animation where it's copying things over to your account. And once it's done, you'll have your own version of the study group repository with your website attached, and it will be the default website, but we'll change that in a second. Some other files you'll also see in here, like our license and our README, and anything with a dash and the two-letter notation for a language means that it's been translated. So we currently have translations in Portuguese and in Bengali. So if those languages are of use to you, great, you can make your entire study group into those languages. I think Alex is also working on a translation in Spanish, not to put Alex on the spot, but yeah, so we're hoping to develop a translation library soon. But if you see any of those kind of notation, then you know that it's just a duplicate of the code of conduct translated into another language. And in the README, there's also links to all of the resources that we shared on the call and that on the orientation guide that Santa sent around. So you can also explore that for some updates. But say the first thing maybe you want to do is change some of the text on your site, change some of the colors. And so you can do that in the config YAML file. So if you click on that, most of the adjustments that you'll make to your study group can be done in the browser, which means you can just edit with this little button here on any of the files, and you can commit the changes without having to clone the repository and use your terminal. So that's what we're going to do in this session. So let's edit this file. And there are lots of helpful little notes here. Everything that's in kind of grayed out with a hash mark in front is a note to tell you what to do in the next section. So say you want to rename your study group, you could call it like a bioinformatics study group. And you can change the study group description if you'd like. You can also change the language with the same 2-letter notation for whatever language you'd like. And then in the second section, you can change the background image. So in the study group that I shared kind of further up on the Etherpad, that's Science Hack Sunday, that's the one we have in Brooklyn, I changed the background image to this weird space decoupage thing. You can choose any image you'd like. Proper attribution is always recommended, but you just change the URL to a JPEG or to a PNG, and it will update your background image. I'm not going to change that right now because I'll just keep the typical background image, but you're welcome to change that. You can change the message, so let's just say welcome instead of welcome to your study group. You can change this headline if you'd like. And in this section, a lot of people also sometimes like to sync their Google Calendar for the study group with the repository, so you can put in the links that Google will generate for any calendar for you here, and you just change this to true from false, and then it will display as a calendar that people can subscribe to on your website. And then there's a little kind of scary message here that says, don't touch anything, but really you can touch this section, it's okay. It's just gonna make federated changes across your website. So the colors, you have a primary and a secondary color, and the primary color is the yellow background that you see. Do I have it loaded here? Yeah, this like yellow color. And the secondary color is what happens when people hover over things. So it slightly changes color, or if they click on something. And so we're going to go to Color Hexa, which is a link that's in the Etherpad. And it's a resource that I like to use for generating palettes because I'm not very great at picking colors that are attractive together. So we're going to just pick this random color. You'll want to copy the hex code. And usually hex codes have a hash mark in front of them, but for the way the study group is set up, you should just copy the value and not the hash with it. So let's find a complementary color. Let's pick this one, why not? And we'll make that our secondary color. And then the secondary dark color, I didn't delete the hash. The secondary dark color is just the text, so you probably won't want to change that from gray or the dark gray. You'll probably want to keep it something dark and high contrast so that it'll show up on your site. And then these are just build settings that you don't really need to change. So we're going to say we updated the config file. And commit changes are very nice. Sometimes it doesn't feel very useful to add a message when you're editing things in the browser, but it's helpful later if you want to scale back your site to a previous version and you wrote something that semantically makes sense, so that you know what this commit, this save was for your repository and what it changed. So we're going to commit changes. And so it will update your website. Sometimes it takes a bit to propagate. It's important to note too that this site is the demo site, so you can delete that when you fork the repo and save a new version, which is specific to your repository. And you can find that link in your settings. If you go down here, GitHub Pages has a section in your settings on any GitHub repository, and you can assign the website that propagates to any branch that you create. So GitHub was designed as a social coding kind of site where you can store code and then collaboratively work with people who are distributed. And so when you add or commit changes, anyone can see them, and then they can pull those changes into their local copy of the GitHub repository. For the purpose of study groups, we only have a GitHub Pages branch, and then we have a few other branches that are just themed for different feature adds. But a branch is just as you forked the repository and copied it to your account, you can create branches for particular changes. So you can branch from a particular commit, just like a tree that has a central trunk and then branches. And you can make changes on that branch that won't affect the integrity of the master branch, which is the trunk of your tree, I guess. So that's the GitHub Pages branch. Was when GitHub started making GitHub Pages, was the branch that you would put everything you wanted to propagate on the actual website. But now it's super easy to reassign your website to any branch that you'd like. So if you create a branch that has a different name, you can do that. You can also assign it to the master branch if you want to make all of your changes in master and then just put it on the GitHub site. So your link will be here, stored in this section of your settings. And if you open that up, it'll hopefully, oh look, here we are with the pretty colors that we chose. And we have a new message, and we changed the name of the study group. And it will change the colors throughout, through the buttons and everything. And now we can update the group members. So to do that, I'm actually going to copy this link and put it on my site so that people who come to my GitHub repository know where to find the actual site for my study group and not the Mozilla Science default site. So I'm going to save that here. And we're going to change members. So you might be thinking, oh, where's the members file? That would make sense, right? It would make sense if we had a file that said members.markdown, but we don't. The way that you update your members is in data. And you'll see some translation YAML files here with the two-letter notation that I mentioned before. But you want to go to the members YAML file, and you want to edit this. And I'm going to remove Bill, even though he was a great member for the first 10 minutes of our study group. And we're going to say my affiliation is Mozilla Science. And I'm going to give my GitHub. And it's important to have your members all on GitHub with GitHub usernames, because it pulls the photo data and any interest information and links to your GitHub profile. So you can also put multiple interests. There's no limit on interests, but I'm pretty interested in programming and open science, so I'm just going to keep it at that. And then we're going to add someone. Oh, yeah, here we go. We'll add another person. So you just copy the same structure as before. You can add Xana. She's a great person to volunteer into this group. She's also at Mozilla Science, and her username is Zmoz. And she likes the same things I do, which is why we're in this great group together. Yay. So edit group members. We're going to call group members and going to commit these changes. And then hopefully when you reload your site after a second, when GitHub realizes that you made changes and changes those things, hopefully the Who We Are section will update. There we go. So it updates automatically, and you have your interests and your affiliation and links to your profile. So that's great. So then another thing you might want to do is create an event. And one thing important to note about GitHub repositories is that they usually have this nice tab bar up here of all these settings and graphs and pulse, and there's a wiki option, so you can create a wiki for your study group if you want. You can use projects to sort of triage issues, which is what it's usually used when it's a collaborative code project. And you can submit or accept or triage pull requests, which are people's additions when they fork your repository or they clone your repository. They can commit changes and then submit a pull request, which is their request to have their changes pulled into your base repository. We're not going to use these right now, but one thing that's missing here is issues. And I don't know why this happens, but GitHub doesn't make issues from forks. It only, if you create a repository, it will have a default issues queue. And issues are things like bugs or problems with the software. Usually people log all kinds of things there. But for study groups, we use it for event management. So we're going to enable issues in our settings. you have to click this little button here, and then it should show up here. So it's like magic. It automatically updates. That's great. And so now we're going to go to issues, and we're going to create our first event. So our first event is an R noobs lesson. You can add notes here. You can add links. And this text editor in GitHub supports the WYSIWYG functions that you see here, but it also supports Markdown. So if you're not familiar with Markdown, you can read this little guide, but the notation for a link, instead of as an HTML, it's an href, but in Markdown, it's this little, you kind of group the things you want linked in between hard brackets, and then put the URL to whatever here. I'm not going to paste in a URL because I don't have one right now, but you can add notes here, and this is a nice way to structure a conversation around the lesson that's going to happen at your event, because other people can then comment on your issue. You can assign it to yourself, which I'm going to do. You can add labels, and you can also edit the types of labels. So a lot of these are designed for software, but you can make them themed labels that say the beginning, intermediate, or advanced level of the workshop, so that people, when they come, they know what to expect, and they know if it's going to be hard or easy. And you can also ask for help from your team members. You can use the labels in many different ways, but you don't need to apply them, of course. And then milestones are usually used to structure a timeline for changes that you make to a code project. For study groups, you can use it for, the first quarter or the first semester of your study group activity. Maybe you want to create a milestone that links all of the issues related to that quarter of activity. You can do that. You can also create a milestone here. So, right, so we're going to submit this issue. So now we have an issue. Yay, we have an issue, and we have a URL for our issue. It's our first issue. When you fork the study group repo, I get a notification. Maybe that's kind of creepy. Maybe it isn't. But I like to write a welcome message to you in your issues. So be sure to enable issues on your repository so that I can write a happy welcome message with emojis and links. And you can also delete issues. So if you don't want your study group cluttered with my welcome message, then you don't then you don't need to have it there. Also important to note that issues don't show up on your website. So in order to get an event listed on your website, you need to link your issue to a post. And so that's what we're going to do next. So we go here, and you notice that there's a posts directory. So you're going to click on that, and you'll see these templates here. So this is the template format for an event, and this is how GitHub knows that this particular file is a new event that you're going to be hosting for your study group. And it has to follow this structure. So usually what I do is I go in, and it looks very pretty in this little table that GitHub structures, but we're going to edit this and just copy it over. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back to posts, and I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to paste in that text that I copied. So we're going to say our noobs lesson, some description of it, my location, Brooklyn, the link, and the link here is the link to your issue usually. It can also be a link to the curriculum if you have a separate place where you're storing curriculum. It can really be a link to anything, but it's the thing that's going to link your event posting on your site to wherever you're storing materials. In this case, we're going to use the issue, but you don't have to use that. So I'm going to copy this link, and I'm going to paste it in here. And let's pick a time in the present, shall we? So 2017, what is tomorrow? I want to say 20th. And the start time can be whatever times you'd like in 24-hour time. So then you save first event. And oh, it doesn't let me do this. And why doesn't it let me do this? Because I didn't make a title. So that was my error. So now I'm going to relook at the title of what the title looked like in the original directory. So it's like this. And Markdown is spelled out, although you can abbreviate it too, and it will still function. And it's important that the date matches the date that you set in your event. So I'm going to call it our noobs. And now I'm able to commit this. So I'm going to commit it. And now you see my our noobs lesson here. If you go to your study group and refresh in a second or so, it should post your event. Might take a hot minute. It still has the average one. Well, hopefully it'll propagate in a second and it'll look a little bit like this. And there's these buttons too where people can also suggest an event or learn more about leading an event. So if you want to solicit contributors from your community, you can point them there. That's pretty much it for setting up your website. There are lots of other things you can customize. You can change your README so that it's less about the general study group's organization and more about your specific study group. You can create your own Gitter chat room. Gitter chat rooms can link to anything, and you can just create them on the Gitter website, gitter.im. But they used to be only linked to repositories, and so there's instructions on the Gitter website for how you can request to have a little button that says Gitter chat placed in your README, and it will automatically submit the pull request for you, and you can accept the pull request and then have a button where people can chat about your study groups. I tend to like the chats for particular sessions to be organized around the issues, because I think it's nice to have that history of notes and conversations with people. But feel free to make a Gitter chat room. And yeah, I think that's about it. Are there any questions? I'm going to stop screen sharing. I hope that was clear.
Thank you so much, Aurelia. That was awesome. I just want to chime in and say that I have spent now many, many hours playing with my study group's website. So if you have questions when you're setting up yours, you should just put them in the Gitter chat, and Aurelia will be there and I'll be there, and we can totally help you to get your site looking exactly the way you want it to look.
I also want to, I'm going to jump in here at this stuff. If you look in the chat for video, Marcos has pasted a link to the recorded video that Aurelia mentioned regarding everything that she just talked about. So if you feel like you got behind or got lost at any point, please feel free to go to that link as well as the Gitter chat for more questions.
Is that link in the Etherpad also?
Yes.
It is. Okay, good.
Yes.
Great. Oh, and Joey, our fellow from last year, who's also on this call, has made an awesome friendly introduction to GitHub, which is going to be my study group's very first session. So check that out, because everyone needs a little friendly introduction. All right, well, we're coming to the end of our goals here. I wonder if we could do 2 more minutes of silent ether padding and do some goal setting. So I have written a near-term goal, and I also wrote like a little win for me, which was roping in co-organizers and making the site. So if you can maybe put a little something you've already win, which might just be showing up for this call, and then a short-term goal and a long-term goal for your group, and we'll take 2 minutes to do that right now. Everybody's in New York City with the car alarm. Or maybe it's not New York City. It just reminds me of New York City. It's exciting to see all these responses coming into the Etherpad. We have a beautiful rainbow. We'll wait till the end of this minute and then we'll talk about them. All right, I'm going to start by reading out my wins and goals, and then you guys can follow me, and then we'll close out the call. So my win is that I roped in 2 faculty co-organizers, one our research data management librarian, and the other is our scholarly communications librarian. And for me, that's pretty important because I think getting some faculty or like more permanent staff is a good way to get some longevity because students transition out of busier and less busy times. And made the Git website, which was a big win for me. So that's great. And then my short-term goal, we have 2 sessions on the calendar. So we're going to get through those and then see what the community needs, what the response was like. And the long-term goal is that my community will feed into events like Open Data Day and Science Hack Day and the Mozilla Code Sprint later this year, and to develop a community that's self-sustaining. So who's next? Francesca?
Sorry, I was
Oh, no problem.
So yeah, I guess the win for me is figure out how to make the website, which is good. And near-term goal is definitely getting the group started with the first event and the first tutorials. And then in the long term, I would really like to open the group to the whole university. Because right now I'm just collaborating with people that I work with every day, pretty much the floor where my office is. So it would be nice to involve other people.
Awesome. Elizabeth?
Yeah. So I guess the win for me was just attending this call and showing up and getting started with all of this. So yes, that's done. Near-term goal is to get the website going. So I forked it, got issues set up, and then actually changing it to be our local group, hopefully, and really getting other people. I've talked to a few, but kind of just broadening who knows about the group and what it could be. And then, so that's my near-term goal. My longer-term goal is to get meetings rolling on kind of a consistent schedule, to have that community feeling and to make people feel like this is a permanent thing that can live on its own. So that's what I'm looking for.
Awesome. Well, feel free to get on that Gitter chat when you're setting up the website and talk to us about it. Nicole? Nick? Sorry, Nick.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Nick.
Okay, cool. Cool. Hi. So I can just agree with what Elizabeth just said. It's like attending this call was pretty awesome. I'm trying to get the website started and like actually get a group going when I'm back in Germany, which is like in 6 weeks or so. But I tried to plan, like contact people already, and like the long-term goal is just have a group of people that sustainably come to the meetings, and also bring people from other labs or just friends with them. So so having people that bring other people.
That's great. Yeah, having people growing the community is an excellent goal, and I think you're going to do it. It's going to be awesome. And talk to us in the Gitter channel as it's developing. James Robinson. That's my last name too.
Great last name. I guess same thing. A win was just starting and getting involved and trying to understand how other people learn to share study group ideas. Long-term goal is to get everyone who I work with in my lab to sort of use Git and R on a regular basis as opposed to sort of as an exception. And short term is just to sort of survey around the university here and see who would be interested in doing a study group, because we're quite a small university, so that might be tricky, but that's something I'll try and do soon.
Well, keep us posted on how it goes to get your lab onto Git and R. That is something that my lab, I had the other grad students were into it, but we always had to then do everything the old-fashioned way for our boss. But if you can push your lab to make the shift, I think it'll, and then you start showing people what you guys are doing, it'll help to get the ball rolling. So, and just feel free to join the Gitter chat and talk about how that's going anytime you feel like it. Teresa?
Hi.
Hi, Teresa.
Hey, can you guys see me?
Yes.
See. All right. I guess my win is making it here, finding the sweet community, downloading video desktop, and getting on my first Etherpad. My near-term goals are to, so there are kind of a couple of groups that I know about that seem to have really similar goals. So it'd be reaching out and seeing if they want to come into the fold, or if they want to, like, if there are other people with similar interests that might be interested in combining forces. And so the next steps, I guess, would be kind of after finding those people, would be all of the intro things like setting up a website, having an intro meeting, that kind of stuff. So thanks.
That's great. I would love to have coffee with you if you're ever up in Portland. For those of you who don't know Oregon geography, Eugene is about 2 hours south of Portland. But I know some other people in Corvallis and in Eugene that I might be able to connect you with who would be interested. Okay, Marcos?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Marcos.
Okay. Hi there. Well, I'll count the attending this call as a win as well, because it was amazing. It is. And my near-term goal is to start off a study group, probably an R-orientated study group, I believe. And I know I have a lot of students that will attend, and there's a lot of people that will love to participate. But my long-term goal is to go beyond my students and try to cater a lot of people from other departments and maybe outside my university. That would be really, really awesome for me to reach out beyond the university. And that's it right now.
That's awesome, Marcos. If you're interested in working with R, you might want to check out and see if you have an R user group meetup in your city. I know that that's a pretty big community. There's R, and then there's like R Ladies International, and we've had a lot of luck collaborating with them in my city. So maybe that would be useful for you to like get the academia. Yeah.
I'm planning to build an R group, an R user group, because there is none here. And
oh,
that
there
would
isn't
be
one there.
good.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Cool. Well, keep us posted.
I will.
And Danielle?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess really, like everyone has been saying, the win is getting started and attending the call. For us, we have a digital scholarship services team, which Laura, who's on this call, is the head of. And starting next month, I'll start working with data management. And so prioritizing when to start and create the page along with everything else that we want to do. And then the long term would be to build community and have events and stuff. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you made it today. All right. Lisa? Lisa still here? I know some people had to jump off the call. Herwin is starting to understand GitHub, yay, and feel free to talk about it to us on the Gitter chat. And the goal is to help localize all this content to Spanish. Yes, we would love to support in any way we can if a group of you guys wants to get together and get some content into Spanish. That would be amazing. Alex, you're still here? Alex, maybe not. That's okay. He also wants to help get the group into Spanish, so maybe Alex and Lisa can get together and we can check in with them and facilitate to help make that happen. Long-term goal is having a developer community and get dedicated to open science hack days. Absolutely. If you stay in the Gitter channel, we'll talk about Open Data Day when we do our events in Portland, so we could even coordinate events. And in June, the Mozilla Code Sprint happens, so that's a great opportunity to get together and work on the projects. Let's move on to Jake.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. So I'm Jake Carlson. I'm a librarian at the University of Michigan, and there's a couple other librarians on the call, which is awesome. And I guess my win is getting to reconnect with Stephanie Wright, who's awesome, who's now at Mozilla Science Lab. We miss her at the academic librarian field. But I really have two goals for looking at the Mozilla study group. One is sort of what can librarians do to help support the creation and momentum of study groups for graduate students? Can we be, there to, start these things off and get the momentum and hopefully learn right along with them? My other goal really is looking at what can study groups do for librarians. So in addition to doing all things data, I'm also tasked with helping librarians incorporate data management and curation and open science generally into their positions. And so I'm really kind of curious to look at, can we use a study group to help librarians learn about things like GitHub or OpenRefine or other tools that either we might use to work with and manage and curate data, or that researchers are using to manage and curate data to better provide services for them?
I just want to plus 10,000 there to get the librarians onto GitHub. One thing that is happening at OHSU, and I don't know if you know the OHSU librarians too, Letitia Wyatt is our research data management librarian, and she's going to help me co-organize the study group. But they're doing a GitHub for project management session, which got postponed due to our crazy snowstorm, but it is going to happen. And I think that might be an even extra friendly way to get people who aren't coders to see the utility of GitHub and things like that. So we'd love to talk more about that with you.
I'm going to jump
welcome.
in.
Yes.
Sorry, Danielle. There's also for any librarians or any other folks who are planning to go to the Research Data Access and Preservation Conference in Seattle in April. We're holding a half-day workshop there on GitHub for project management as well.
Yay.
Which I wish I could go to, but my workshop is exactly opposite yours.
I saw that, Jake!
I know.
How did we do that again?
I have no idea, but there you go.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to work that out somehow. Or I guess we'll be developing that curriculum, so you can teach it yourself. Yeah. Julian, do you want to go?
Yep. So I was correct. I didn't know about this until a few days ago, and Jen Nichols, who's a local librarian and really passionate about this stuff, told me about it. And so just meeting her and meeting you guys is my win. And long term, yeah, trying to improve research outcomes by breaking down some of the silos between the various worlds in research, academia, industry, engineering, scientists, all of those things that we can learn a lot from each other. So that's my long-term goal, and see if we can do that. Short-term, between now and April, is launching the first RaisBaz Festival in Arizona. So only the second in the US. I think the other one's been in Oklahoma at the beginning of or last year sometime. So yeah, so looking forward to that.
That's awesome. Let us know what we can do to help with the organization or just talking to you about it. That's really exciting, and I love your ultimate goal. I feel like
I have to run.
Yeah. Oh, get out of here. Yeah, go do your thing. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very
coming to the
much.
call. All right, Abiel?
Yeah, well, my win is meeting you guys. Thank you very much. And my near-term goal, I think, is well to work with guys here in Mexico City, with Alex, Uriel, and all those guys. And a long term, it is to establish an stable group in my university and here in Mexico.
That's wonderful. Erin McKiernan is in Mexico City, and she's an open science person. And maybe if you don't already know her, you should try to connect, because she could be a great resource for your study club. I will look up her information and put it in the Etherpad. Laura, do you want to share your wins and goals? Is it Laura still there? Laura, hello. Okay. Who's next? Someone else was down there, and I opened a new tab to go look up Erin McKiernan. Now my Etherpad's reloading.
Laura doesn't have a mic, so
she
we'll
doesn't
have
have
to
a
read
mic.
hers.
Okay, so I'll read hers. That's great. Sorry, I see that in the chat now. Laura, so the win is getting things started. Awesome. That is always a win. The near-term goal is to encourage librarians working on data management to support and establish a regular study group. That's awesome. I think it's great to have faculty involved. It really helps keep things moving. Long-term is to learn Python yourself, yes, and use it to mine data. About local users of Sci-Hub, absolutely awesome. That is so cool. I would love to hear more about that. Yeah, so keep us posted on all that, and we hope to see you in the Gitter chat. And now, Rebecca.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I ended up being really late today, and my apologies.
Don't worry about it.
I am a science librarian and a biology grad student at my university, and looking at a data project for my thesis. I am learning, lots of learning, and I'm hoping to connect with the people at my university, and I'm in New Haven, Connecticut, so there are a number of universities in the area, so we may have some area groups already going that I haven't found yet.
Yeah, that's great. I think keep us posted on looking into area groups. And I think one of the nice things about the study group is it can bring in people from other groups, even if they don't want to show up to every meeting. Like I think it was Sarah was saying they might want to show up and teach something. So yes, and we have several New England folks. So I think we're all done with what we need to get through, unless Aurelia and Steph have other comments. I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending this hour and 40-minute call. That's awesome. It's really fun for me, it's the morning, so it's really fun to spend the morning connecting with people all around the world and talking about how to get the project off the ground. So I'm excited to have been here. And yeah, welcome to Mozilla. You're all in now. You're in the network.
This is Steph. I'd just like to add two things. Number one, if you haven't already, please do add your name to the roll call at the top under line 23, just so we have an idea of who else here. And secondly, I want to plug yet again, I think I'm looking for what line this is under. Under line 167, the applications for open leader training. This is a really great opportunity that includes, if you're accepted into the open leader training, includes an invitation to participate in our next Working Open workshop, where we talk about how to build community guidelines, how to become a really great leader in the open community. We talk about GitHub. There's a half-day GitHub workshop there. I'm trying to remember what else we have. Aurelia, help me out here.
Oh.
We talk about pathways, personas, who your users are, how to engage them, all kinds of wonderful things. So I really do want to encourage everyone to apply for that. The deadline is tomorrow, but we can probably sneak you in. If you can't quite make it, just let us know.
That's awesome. I want to second that. I haven't done it myself, but one of our other fellows did it last year, and she found it to be a professionally life-changing type of experience. So you should definitely apply. And all right, well, we're all done. This was really wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, and make sure that your calendars are updated with our next call, because we'd love to talk some more and we have more to share.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.